Alright, what time is it? 2:01, we should get started. Cool.
Yes.
Alright, well, thanks guys for coming to this panel. This is Castlevania-Mania, and we're going to be basically talking about the Castlevania series and how it affected the indie game scene with this new wave of retro indie video games. The apt term is Metroidvania. We're going to talk about that in a little bit as far as if it's really called Metroidvania. I don't know. Mike,
I have a very specific definition of the term.
Is there another mic?
Yeah, in my hand.
Oh, in your hand? Where's the mic, sir?
I speak very loud. I feel everybody can hear me properly.
All right.
So.
Okay. All right.
I hate you, that's what.
Oh, okay.
Good. Everybody happy?
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to introduce ourselves first. So I guess we'll start. We'll go to the left side and we'll work up to me. So, Pam.
Hello. You guys working?
Let me see. Which one are you?
Okay. I'm Pam. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Cannot Be Tamed, and I talk about mostly retro games, although some newer games recently. I also have a podcast called Media Mavens, where we talk about all kinds of media. And that's it.
I'm Try. I'm from the YouTube channel My Life in Gaming, and we do a lot of sort of tech and video quality stuff about retro games. We talk about other games and do documentaries and whatever we feel like.
Mike.
Yeah, my name is RewindMike. I kind of do the same thing. I talk about new tech and like how companies are trying to bring, older consoles forward with clones or even upscalers, stuff like that, I really enjoy taking a look at that, see if it's even worth your money to spend most of it on, and then, I review a lot of older games, but not things I really grew up playing, because most of it we all kind of already played. We know what it's about, so I try to dig a little deeper and find something you may have not played, you may have not heard about, maybe an import title that is, worthy of your attention that doesn't require some sort of knowledge of the Japanese language to play, stuff like that.
My channel is Dongled on YouTube. The channel is, I guess, famous for Dude, You Haven't Played This Game, which is a video game review show that I do. Basically, it's edutainment at its finest. You get to, if you've ever seen 16-Bit Gems with Rue, Clan of the Grey Wolf, Happy Video Game Nerd, Angry Video Game Nerd, I'm a huge fan of their stuff, so my show is kind of similar to that, but with my own goofy, stupid humor. So I'm a huge Castlevania fan. I'm the one that put this together, so it's my favorite series of all time. And I also do a podcast called XVGM Radio, and that is video game music. So if you like podcasts and you like video game music, we do a number of different types of things. I also do a show called Noob Repair on that channel. Noob Repair is how you can kind of organize your stuff in your game room, or tips and tricks for cleaning stuff, or organization, modding, hardware modding without soldering. That's the big key, is no soldering. So yeah. So it puts the new part. Yeah.
Anybody can kind of do it.
And then I have the last one is gaming linguistics. All of this is on my channel. Gaming linguistics is if you ever wondered how to say Zebus from Metroid, I cover that. Chrono from Chrono Trigger, I cover that.
It's not Zeebs.
It's not Zeebs.
I'm very sad.
Yeah.
It's actually in a commercial or something like that.
Yep. Yeah. So I also want to announce we are doing a giveaway based on trivia that we're going to do today. So at the end of the panel, we're going to be giving away a copy of Castlevania II Simon's Quest, but it's signed by Angry Video Game. This comes from my own personal collection, and also all of us signed it, as well as Game Dave and Wrestling with Gaming. So, yeah, good stuff. So, hope you know your Castlevania, because I got some questions. So, I guess we'll start off with Castlevania, just because, it makes the most sense. So, we're gonna talk about 3 games mostly, which basically kicked off, in my opinion, the Metroidvania kind of series. Yeah, the progression towards it. So, do you want to take the first one with Vampire Killer?
Me?
Yeah.
So Vampire Killer was released on MSX in Japan in 1986.
Mhm.
And it was also released in Europe. I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah. I didn't know that either until this
The
morning.
game was a retooled version of Akamajo Dracula. Prior to the US release's rebranding of Castlevania, hearts are collected and used for not only sub-weapons, but as payments to merchants. Prices can be discounted depending on a pickup you can acquire. However, the game is still linear as each stage starts Simon off with none of the equipment he finished with, but rooms are more non-linear themselves, with keys being required to unlock parts of the mansion. And then I guess that kind of led to a reimagined version that became the Castlevania we know, which
Yeah.
is quite different.
Yeah.
I can't claim to have any experience with the MSX.
I have seen video footage of it, of this particular game, and it's interesting because it's basically a retooled version of the very first Castlevania game. And it came out before, or is it after? It's 86 that it came out. So Castlevania 1 came out in 87, I believe, in North America. So it wasn't actually called Castlevania, it was called Akamajo Dracula. And then when they brought it over, they were like, we can't call it Akamajo Dracula. Nobody knows what an Akamajo is. It's like literal translation like Demon Castle Dracula. So instead they were like, all right, well, I guess we'll call it Castlevania, because they couldn't call it Transylvania for whatever reason. I don't know.
I mean, Castlevania is a pretty cool name.
Yeah, I thought so.
Super catchy.
So, do you want to do the Castlevania 2, Pam?
So, Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, was out on the Famicom in 1987 and then came out on the NES here in December of 1988. It's a sequel to the original Castlevania, and this changes it up by making it a non-linear game with dungeons spread throughout the adventure. There's towns where Simon can talk to merchants as well as NPCs, and I believe the NPCs can lie to you as well as help you.
I've always wondered if that's intentional or not.
Bad translation.
It is based on the manual. So that's the thing is everyone, angry video game gamers specifically was notorious for saying like, oh, you have no idea what's going on in the game because these people are telling you all this stuff and it doesn't make any sense. It's very cryptic. Well, in the manual, in the NES version, they tell you specifically that it's the things that they're telling you are not true. You can't always trust them. They're lying to you. So, and what's crazy is as you go through the game and you progress more and more, you start seeing the townspeople become more and more insane, to the point where you're like, what is going on? Like, there's a dude sitting on the floor just hanging out and he's like, come live with me? Like, what?
I do feel, though, that once you get past sort of the early stumbles of the game and you sort of get in the right mindset to play it it starts to make sense. It's like, you get into the groove of like how you talk to these people and how you compile this information in your head.
Yeah.
It's not as impossible as people make it out to be.
Right.
It's just very, like I said, non-linear, confusing sometimes, trying to figure out where you have to go in that game.
It is.
So Castlevania 2 was the first one to have ways to level up your, There were ways to level up your health bar based on hearts, and it was the first time that leveling up was introduced to the series. In order to access certain parts of the levels, you may need one of the 5 pieces of Dracula's dismembered body, which Simon has to gather in each dungeon. There's less of a focus on boss fights in this one, with only Death and Carmilla's mask, although she was incorrectly identified as
Camilla. Yes. And Mike, you want to take Symphony of the Night?
I don't even like Symphony of the Night.
What? Get out. Get out. How dare
Who
you?
vetted this guy?
What is a Rewind Mike?
First, they introduced a number of hit point systems similar to RPGs. Non-linear adventure, which takes place entirely in the castle. Yeah. First game in the mainline series to not play as a Belmont. Richter is not. Richter is not a Belmont?
Keep reading.
Despite starting out with the ending of Rondo of Blood, or Dracula X.
Where you play as Richter.
Yeah, where you play as Richter.
Right. This guy.
Richter and SOTN.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Familiars
You'd also
can be
play as
discovered.
Melina.
Yeah, the familiars can also be
In the Saturn
discovered.
version.
Axe armor.
Yeah.
Where was I? Oh, yeah. The familiars can be discovered, which can either aid in attacking or finding secrets. Special powers allow access to certain parts of the map, like the gravity boots and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of really useful like items to make traversal easier. It was also the first game in the main series to not start you with a whip, aside from Bloodlines, which gave you the choice between John Morris, which has a whip, and Eric Lacard, which gives you the spear, and the spear also allows him to do like a double jump, which is pretty nice, or not even a double jump, just like a higher jump.
Yeah, just a higher jump, yeah.
And then it's also the second game in the series to immediately follow a previous title that was linear, with the sequel being non-linear. So I wouldn't. Is Dracula X linear? Like the Super
Dracula
game?
X, it has some branching paths,
Yeah.
which the series kind of dabbled with thanks to like Vampire Killer, but for the most part it's
Just alternating paths.
yeah, I mean it's like you can go up or you can go down, you know?
Yeah, so it's like Super 3 in that sense.
So it was total. Symphony of the Night was a total game changer. It was more in line with Simon's Quest, which is funny to me because everyone always rags on Simon's Quest for being so different from the first game.
I just don't
but
understand it.
But then Symphony of the Night came out. It's like a totally different experience. So, but hey. So there's other Castlevania games that came out afterwards. So what ended up happening was Castlevania was kind of at a crossroads in between Rondo of Blood, which came out exclusively for the TurboGrafx 16 or the PC Engine, the Super CD. And they didn't know where they wanted the series to go. So they ended up working with Koji Igarashi, who was the longtime producer of Castlevania, starting with that game. So he started with Rondo of Blood, and then he ended up doing the whole series, basically. So, and as you guys may or may not know, Koji Igarashi is no longer with Konami now. He's working on his own game, Bloodstained, which is basically like Symphony of the Night Part 2, if you want to say, yeah, unofficially.
Very close.
Yeah. So, but regarding Koji Igarashi, he wanted to make something that was different, that kind of took inspiration from other games, and this is where the whole Metroidvania thing kind of comes in. He's been interviewed before and has said that Metroid was an inspiration. However, like Super Metroid, he's also been interviewed fairly recently where he sat down and played through with, I think it was Double Fine, the developers. Was it Double Fine?
It was during like the whole Kickstarter phase, right? I think it might have been them.
Yeah, I think it was Double Fine, and they sat down, they played through Symphony of the Night, and he talked about some things that were just like revelations, like nobody had ever heard any of this info. And one of the things that he said, which kind of stuck with me, was he never intended to make it so that Metroidvania would be a thing. He specifically said on his end that it was actually Zelda that was their main inspiration for the development team. There was a small development team.
One look at the map screen and I don't believe that.
Yeah, and that's why I said Metroid with Super Metroid. When you look at the map, I mean, obviously you look at the map and it's like night and day as far as that goes. And that's what I always thought too. But then when I saw that, I was like, okay. And the way you explained it was like because you were going from place to place and you needed a specific object in order to get to a new location, which you also saw in Super Metroid too, like the gravity boots and the wall jumping. So I don't know. So it's kind of one of those things where some people say Igavania, some people say Metroidvania, some people say Zeldavania. I personally try to call them Igavanias just because they're modeled after something that he did, that he kind of like coined. This was like iconic in his era, but we're going to talk today about some of the games that are different, but we're going to wrap up with some of the Castlevania games, and then we're going to jump into some of the, just talking about some of the other games. So there was Circle the Moon, which came out, I think that was the next one that came out right after that.
GBA?
On Game Boy
It was
Advance.
a GBA launch game.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. And that one has actually been retconned in the official timeline for Castlevania. There was Harmony of Dissonance, which came out for the Game Boy Advance. That one you play as Just Belmont, or Juiced?
I always thought it was Juice.
Juiced?
I don't
Yeah.
know.
I don't know, it sounds kind of French.
Yeah.
And then Dawn of Sorrow, and Aria of Sorrow. Both of those were Game Boy Advance for Aria of Sorrow, and then the DS one was Dawn of Sorrow.
The last four of those like definitely felt much more like Symphony. The first one, Circle of the Moon, like it sort of does. It was the first one to follow Symphony, so it didn't really know where to go with the mechanics. It feels like this weird blend of Symphony and the more actiony platform-based games.
Right, yeah. And then Lament of Innocence and Curse of Darkness I have on this list as well as the N64 games, Castlevania 64 and Legacy of Darkness.
Underrated.
In my opinion, thank you. I knew there was a reason I brought this guy out.
Melodi's not a bad game.
It's
a bad rap.
It's
a
not.
bad camera system, but everything on the 64 had a bad camera. Everything in that generation had horrible camera.
Yeah, but Castlevania 64, I think it gets a lot of hate because a lot of people feel that it's very clunky and the camera's it's wonky, and it is, and the combat is kind of all over the place. But what I love about that game is you actually fight vampires in it, which is so cool. Like none of the other games you really fight vampires.
Yeah, I mean it's a platformer of that era, and a lot of people don't like platforming in that era because camera issues and stuff. But I have a big soft spot for action games of that time, and I think Castlevania 64 and Legacy of Darkness, if you look at them in retrospect and you look at the trajectory Castlevania took, which was largely the Metroidvania, Igavania style, you look at that and you're like, oh, that actually kind of feels like what the older style, the more action platforming style would be in 3D, and it's probably the most accurate example of that in 3D.
Yeah, I agree.
I think.
Yeah. And I like the fact that once you get accustomed to the camera and once you get accustomed to the jumping mechanics, it's not bad.
It's
That's
pretty
the
fun.
thing
I like
that
it.
gets you to a lot is the jumping.
Right.
Trying to grab on certain ledges or something like that. It's really annoying.
Oh yeah. So the N64 games they have kind of a mix of linear and non-linear, as well as some elements inspired by previous titles. Such as like hunting down keys to access certain doors in Castlevania 64, which you didn't see too much of. They brought back the night and day cycle from Castlevania 2. With Lament of Innocence, it's just kind of a big maze, kind of.
Lament is kind of divided into like a hub world and individual levels, and the rooms are very samey. You would never be able to navigate the castle without the map.
Right.
Because one hallway looks the same as all the others. I actually have a soft spot for Lament of Innocence. Maybe not too replayable, but Curse of Darkness I can't do.
No.
I can't do. A lot of people like that more than Lament, but I can't do it.
That's the next one, right?
That is the
If you want to talk about generic looking hallways, that one you will
That one, Lament and Curse both have very like generic looking hallways.
long empty hallways, so painful.
I would say though that with Lament, the only problem that I really had with it was they nailed down the origin story and they basically retconned Legends, which was technically Sonia Belmont was the first member of the Belmont lineage. So you had a woman stepping in, fighting Dracula, and that was supposed to be canon, and then they wiped it out and replaced it with Lament, and then you had Leon Belmont, and it was just, I don't know. I always had a personal problem with that, but there was also like some weird stuff with Alucard, like he was dating, or he was like hooking up with...
In Lament?
No, not Lament. In Legends, supposedly.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Like he was
that.
like Alucard and Sonia Belmont end up getting together, which is like what? Anyways, Curse of Darkness. It reintroduced the familiars, so brought back the familiars from Symphony of the Night, where you can well, like all the little. I always called it a mix of Pokemon mixed with like Chocobo breeding in Final Fantasy VII. I don't know, because like you have to do things in a very specific way in order to get like the best.
Wait, which one are we talking about?
Curse of Darkness.
Okay.
Because you get those,
I've not played that much of it.
You get these relics that you can like pick up, these like little guys that'll fight your battles with you, and then you can like level them up, and then if you like crossbreed them or something like that, you can make like a black chocobo, and then you can you can get the Knights of the Round. No. I don't know.
But those games less so, I think, have that interconnected sort of layout compared to what we would normally think of as an Igavania.
Right. And then you have Portrait of Ruin, which is the first game in the series to allow you to switch characters on the fly. So if you guys did play that, you probably heard a lot of Jonathan, Charlotte, Jonathan, Charlotte, or like, wait, it was the reverse.
There's only two, there is no reverse.
Yeah, it'd be like Charlotte, Jonathan. And then Order of Ecclesia, which is probably the most underrated of the Igavanias. It brought back the town from Castlevania 2, like all the town stuff, the NPC stuff. So
Female protagonist.
Female protagonist,
She's a
yeah.
magic user. Like,
Yeah, she's a magic user.
Heavy.
It's such a good game.
See, I wanted to like Order of Ecclesia a lot more than I did. Like, it felt like it didn't really pick up for me until like you get to the castle, which happens in the latter part, which I thought at first, I thought, oh, this is so cool, like there's so much setup for the game outside the castle.
Yeah.
But it felt like just a lot of long hallways, and it felt like it was going back to the action platformer style, except like jumping wasn't challenging, there was no pits to fall into and die, so it sort of felt like, to me, it was in this weird in-between where it's not entirely Castlevania 1 or Castlevania 2, and it's not entirely Symphony of the Night, and it just, I don't know. For me, that one, I thought it was overrated. You think it's underrated? I don't know.
I feel like a lot of stuff that they reintroduced, that they brought back, that was really cool. One thing was the town. So you would go into the town and you would hang out with all these weird townsfolk, and then you can like go on these little quests that they give you, like, you know, go find a piece of bread that's somewhere like in this cave, and then bring
there
it
was
back.
definitely cool elements that I appreciated them bringing back, but I felt, for me anyway, the level design just kind of bored me. That was just me.
I thought that the gameplay itself was really challenging, and the bosses were brutal in that game, which I like a good challenge. So if I'm challenged, then I'm happy. So, and that kind of brings an end to the Igavania portion of the Castlevania series, that then was ruined with Castlevania Lords of Shadow, which we won't talk about.
I will say, I have not played Lords of Shadow 2 yet,
Okay.
but a friend of mine has said that she thinks that Lords of Shadow 2 is the most Metroidvania style game that she's played in 3D, which surprised me because the first Lords of Shadow is not like that. I'm like, oh, that kind of makes me want to play it. But I don't know.
I've heard it's really bad.
I mean, I don't know. One friend kind of sold me on it, so
Yeah.
I kind of looking forward to playing that.
My thing with Lords of Shadow is I think one of the most important aspects of Castlevania is atmosphere and music. And Castlevania probably has one of the greatest like atmospheres in music in all video games, in my opinion at least. Right up there with like Ys, like the E series and stuff like that. So when you take that away and you throw on like a generic orchestral soundtrack, it's just blah. So.
I kind of like Lords of Shadow, but not as a Castlevania game, but I did think it was like very visually striking on its own merits.
Yeah, people tweet at me and they'll say like, oh, you know, what do you think of Lords of Shadow? And I'm like, you don't want to go there. So, but everybody's entitled to their own opinion. So now we're gonna, I guess, kind of move into the Metroidvania aspect of it. So I know Pam has like a bunch of games that you want to talk about.
Oh, sure. Did we want to like define a Metroidvania?
Yeah,
Like, what
I guess that's a good point. Yeah, so what would you guys call a Metroidvania?
You don't want me to start.
Well, I think the most basic aspect is a large interconnecting map of which you have to open new areas by either defeating bosses or finding new power-ups that will allow you access.
I think a lot of people, I mean, I agree completely with that definition, because I think a lot of people specifically divide on item progression and ability progression has to open up new areas, and I personally disagree with that. I think the main key is interconnected world. The big joy I always get out of that style of game is when I see a door at some point in the game, and then I'm like, oh, I don't know how to get to it, I don't know how to go through that, and then at some point later in the game you do a bunch of stuff, and then you either come out of that door, and you're like, oh, or, you know, you get an item and you're like, now I know how to get there. You know, it's all about that world being connected, and for me, games like the original Resident Evil or Dark Souls, like those games that have that interconnected world, even in a sort of 3D environment, that's the key to me. I used to call it, before people said Metroidvania, I used to say like, this game takes place in one big level. And I loved that. that.
Yeah,
And so that was always the key to me. Big, interconnected world, one big level, or in some cases maybe two big levels or something like that. But it really didn't have anything to do with character progression, item progression, anything like that. Although those aspects are good, but I don't think they are the key.
Yeah. No. Mike?
You could go next. Mine's gonna drive the conversation
boy.
probably. So.
Okay. So I tend to go with the aspects of, does it play like Symphony of the Night? And if it plays like Symphony of the Night, then because that game was the icon that it was, I would say that that would be a Metroidvania. So if you've got a protagonist who is, working in a side-scrolling, 2D environment, going from either left to right or right to left, and generally the area is either segmented or one big level, that tends to make sense. And again, like unlocking by beating certain bosses and collecting certain items, and then getting to a certain point in the game where you're stuck, and then you need to figure out where to go to get advanced in the game. Like Super Metroid, basically. Yeah, Super Metroid, or even like Zelda, Link to the Past. Both of those games I think were tremendously instrumental on Castlevania. So.
Yes.
Okay. Now you and your big finish.
I have I define it very differently because, like you said, he compared it to Zelda more than anything. We compare it to Metroid. They're both very much the same game where you have to do certain things in a certain order. They facilitate one style of gameplay. You really can't stray from it too much. But it's one big interconnected world, which is where I think the Metroid part comes from. But when you come down to the Vania part, I feel that's where the RPG elements come in a little bit more.
Yeah.
You can sort of customize the way you play. You want to use a heavy axe, you want to use a short sword and a shield, you want to go full magic. It gives you the chance to kind of customize the way that you play your game.
So you would say RPG elements, stats, customization.
Right,
That is
would be the Vania. So like a game like Axiom Verge, I would consider that a Metroid style game. I wouldn't say Metroidvania.
Sure.
There's no RPG elements in it. You still have a gun. It doesn't facilitate different styles of gameplay or anything like that. It's just this is our game. These are our tools. Enjoy it.
Well, that's a strong argument for the Igavania term over Metroidvania.
Right. So that's like, I don't know, I have a very different way I classify the multiple different types of gameplay, I guess, that they all deliver.
No, I mean, that's certainly a key, and I would say something like, if I'm not mistaken, Lament of Innocence, for instance, you can't level up in that one, can you?
No, you could find like a fire whip and a lightning whip.
Yes.
Right, so that wouldn't quite qualify.
No.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why I kind of felt like it's not really a part of this list.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's more Castlevania-ish. But yeah. All right. So I guess we'll go through that's our definition, I guess.
We all carry
So
very differently.
what games sort of follow that format, I guess?
Which format?
The Metroid.
The Metroid
Straight
aspect.
Well, I guess we can determine that if they are straight Metroid or if they are the combat.
Yeah.
All right, well then, let's start with Axiom Verge, which is not, I guess, by that definition, it's not really a Metroidvania. It's more of a love letter to Metroid.
Yeah.
There's none of those RPG elements or something. And I also feel like the Metroid part of it, not only is it about just the map without the RPG stuff, but it's also like the atmosphere. Like it's very lonely, sort of like any games in space or under the ocean. Those are like that kind of lonely feeling.
So it's more Metroid and less Castlevania.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very, very much so. It's got a very crazy story that'll keep you engaged completely to the end of the game, which I don't think
When
comes
you
a
take
lot.
your helmet off, is it a chick underneath?
I haven't played it
You
yet.
actually
so
have to-
spoilers.
I actually haven't played Axiom Verge.
You actually have to
yet.
take off your trench coat.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Something that surprised me about that game was I heard that it uses like all the buttons on the controller, which
It's
surprised me because I thought, oh, that sounds more complicated than I expected.
Well, think about it. With the new Mega Man 11 that just came out, they mapped Rush to a button. You don't have
Well,
to
then
pause
that's
the
nice.
game.
That's smart.
nice.
So like a lot of the secondary stuff, they give you like a drill and like they give you this gun that lets you like decrypt certain things because you're like in a computer, I think, in the game. I'm not. It's very the
It's very
story will
confusing.
keep you going right to the story will keep you going right to the end in that game. I'm telling you. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
There's the button layout is very very
Cool.
intuitive.
A lot of abilities and a lot of weapons, a lot of which are kind of overlapping and maybe not necessary to have quite as
No,
many as
no.
there are.
They do kind of allow you to customize the way you play. If you want a close-up game or a long game, you have like the shotgun-style weapon and the long-range weapons. You know, it's kind of there, I guess. Actually, that Verge is really good though. If you guys haven't played it, one person made the whole game. It's mind-blowing.
Do we want to talk about the Shantae series?
Yes.
I want to talk about
That's all
it.
you
I
guys.
always
can't
wanna
get
talk
it
about
for
Shantae.
some reason, I cannot.
Well, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay.
Now, Shantae, I don't think that any of those games have like a level progression system, but they do have like numbers. Some of them anyway have numbers that pop up on enemies as you attack. So there's sort of an RPG-like element.
Yeah, a little bit.
I think that a game series that's very near and dear to me is the Wonder Boy Monster World series. Which I think Shantae probably takes the majority of its inspiration from, rather than Metroid. Of course, some of those games I would consider, even though it was before Castlevania was doing that, I always consider Wonder Boy Monster World, Dragon's Curse, Dragon's Trap. I would consider those games Metroidvanias.
Yeah, there's a lot of games that came out prior to Castlevania 2 and Vampire Killer.
Yeah, I guess that's an argument.
They were non-linear, so just because they were non-linear, like Zelda 2 and Battle of Olympus and stuff like that, and even going way, way back like Spelunky and Pitfall, like the first Pitfall. So they're non-linear, but that doesn't mean that they're Metroidvania. So
Yeah, I mean, I would say especially like something like Dragon's Trap or Dragon's Curse is, you know, with Shantae and the different transformations and stuff. Definitely takes inspiration from that. You know, monsters dropping money and stuff. You know, actually, do monsters drop money in Shantae? I'm trying to think.
yes, well they drop
stuff.
they drop like jewels.
Jewels, yeah.
So you got to collect the jewels, and you can buy new weapons with the jewels. So there's a shop in most of the games that you can go and buy like equipment that you need.
Half Genie Hero was kind of a departure.
It was more like Mega Man. It was more like a hub Mega Man.
Yeah,
sort of
you
thing.
go to different levels, and you know, you kind of revisit those levels to
Half Genie
for
Hero.
different objectives. But the Shantae games that went before it were very much that open-ended world, sort of interconnected. You could go here, there, as your abilities expand. That would very much be an ability-based world exploration sort of situation because of the different transformations, like you go to different areas.
But it also takes a lot of inspiration from Castlevania 2 in the sense that you can go to towns and like you can meet like wacky characters. Like in Risky's Revenge, you have to finagle your way to a little like bakery sort of thing, and then you meet the little baker girl, and she's like, "Hey, find my dog." And then you have to go find her dog, and then you bring it back, and she's like, "Great, now I'll give you this stew," or whatever. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's that sort of thing that I really was kind of drawn to in the game. And of course the non-linear maps. But the map that they give you in that game is just super confusing.
Yeah,
It's really difficult
It's
to
not as
navigate.
useful as oh gosh, you want to talk about bad Metroidvania? This just popped in my head. Like talk about bad maps, Kirby and the Amazing Mirror.
I haven't played that.
That game. Have you ever played that? It is. Has anyone here play Kirby and the Amazing Mirror? Does anyone in the room like Kirby and the Amazing Mirror? It's got to be the worst Kirby game.
Really?
It is so bad. Like it's a good idea. Kirby, Metroid style map. Interconnected world, sign me up. But somehow the map is so bad in that game.
Wow.
That it's something about the different areas were so unmemorable. I would go through the same door 3-4 times thinking, have I been through here yet? Then you go through, if you know how doors in Kirby work, certain doors are one-way doors. So you go through and you're like, oh, no, I've been here before, and you gotta go through the whole area
stuck.
again.
We have a question.
What's also notable about Amazing Mirror is that it's a multiplayer Metroidvania.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's true. That
Which,
is true.
I mean, obviously, I think the circumstances for playing that would be tough. But anyway, that's a bit of an aside. It just fired up my hate of Amazing Mirror when you said bad map.
Yeah,
Shantae does not have a bad map in comparison to Amazing Mirror because it's nearly indecipherable in that game.
Wow.
Sultan Sanctuary doesn't even have a map.
Really?
Yeah, the world is humongous in that game, and there is zero map.
I don't mind having no map
Well,
necessarily.
here's the thing, right? They tried to. everybody hold your laughs for a minute. They tried to make the game like Dark Souls with the way the world is. But with Dark Souls, you can see what's in front of you because it's a 3D world, whereas this one, it's a 2D plane, and you can't see what's on the borders of the screen. So I kind of need some sort of direction, I feel, with that game. Really good, though. I really enjoyed that game. It made me think way too much time, way too much backtracking.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, I haven't been here. And then you like walk through a certain area, and you're like, oh, it's just this area from the other side. Great.
Do you all generally find that when you start a Metroidvania game, if you take a break from it, you can't really go back to it? Like, I feel like I always have to beat them in a relatively short span of time, or else I just don't know where I'm going, or it doesn't have the same impact when you return to an area you've been to before. It's like, oh, wow.
I will constantly praise Fusion for that.
That's
For
true.
giving you some sort of direction, something to talk
That
to,
is
even
true.
if it's just a computer. It lets you know, hey, you need to go to section whatever and do this thing. Like, so it was really good at not really holding your hand, but still telling you like what area of the map you need to be in.
Yeah, I mean, it's as a Metroid game that disappointed me, but on replays, I've been able to appreciate it, a lot more.
Yeah, I think the quality of the map is what determines whether you can go back to that after taking a month off or something. Some have very clear objectives, some have good maps where you can see, oh, here's a spot I haven't been yet. But if it's more of a plain map that doesn't tell you a lot, then it's very difficult to go back.
I had that problem with Axiom Verge on my second playthrough, where I really enjoyed it on the first time, but the second time I went through, they don't tell you anything, they don't tell you where to go, you get really lost, even though you just finished the game. The one way they alleviate that, though, is they allow you to put 2 markers on each section, each map up in the game.
Sorry.
Was it a Capcom game?
No.
It sounded like Castlevania.
It was Bloodlines. Yeah, I was listening to Bloodlines on the way in here. Yeah. Yeah, I'm stuck on Portrait of Ruin. I've been trying to beat that game for 10 years.
Now that one is more sort of divide by levels.
I'm stuck on the end, really.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you get to the point where you have to jump from painting to painting, and it's the very last part of the game where
Sounds familiar.
I think it's the one where you're trying to find the vampire killer, because in that game you don't have the vampire killer whip. He has a different whip. It's like a generic whip.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, and basically he's not strong enough to, yeah. So there's a trivia question about
I like that. I like
that I'm not gonna spoil.
But a lot of these games, these Metroidvania games, they tend to not necessarily be the longest games in the world, which can be kind of a nice thing.
True.
Especially when you are trying to memorize the layout of the world.
Strapped for time.
I'm just not really a speedrunner though. I'd rather get everything.
Oh, but
You know,
multiple playthroughs, you start to learn things.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
so fast.
Well, I've played Metroid Zero Mission multiple times, but there's always 1 or 2 missiles that I'm just
That's because you're 100%ing it.
well, no, I'm not even. I'm just trying to get the missiles because I know they're there. It's the one where you have to go into ball mode and then you have to be, what's it called? Where you're,
2 pillars, you have to make them raise and lower.
no. The one where you gotta jump as the ball, when you're in ball mode, and then shoot yourself forward by using the speed boost. It's so impossible.
So they force you to use a speed run trick in order to get.
Yeah.
So here's a question. You're talking about speed running versus going and taking your time. Do you feel that the requirements in some of these games to collect everything in under a certain amount of time to get the best ending or whatever like that? Do you think that defeats the purpose of these games? Do you think that discourages playing the game the way it's meant to be?
Is it low percentage is a way to if you played a game multiple times, it's a good way to still enjoy that game and kind of give yourself a challenge with it. So you ever hear the randomizers and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like that, where
Yeah.
you've played the game so many times, but you still want to experience it. You like the mechanics, and you still want to be in its world. So I don't know, speedrunning kind of does that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think there's
A low
a
percent.
right way to play any one game. I'm a completionist, I like to explore everything, I like to collect everything, but there's also Ori and the Blind Forest, I just 100%ed that
for the second time recently. And there's achievements for like beat this game in 3 hours, beat this game without dying, and it's like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
That doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, no. That's like the Mega Man 9 achievements, but they're like, beat this game without getting hit. And I'm like, you're insane.
Yo, my God.
Yeah, it's so stupid. And people have done it. And I'm like, how? How? I work.
Study.
Like, I have a job.
Study.
Now I think Ori is a good example of a game that, you know, it takes that Metroid, Castlevania blend, but you were talking about how he was also inspired by Zelda games. Ori has like individual sort of dungeons that you have to go through.
Yeah.
Oh, the new game, the NES game, Blizzard. You hear of it? It's like a homebrew. Some guy that worked for the same studio who did Fallout New Vegas.
Obsidian?
Yes, he used to work for Obsidian. He made this new NES game. It's called Lizards, and like you play as like a lizard, and there's like a person in its mouth, and you have to like find other lizards. They have different abilities. And in
I did see that.
Each
It
corner
looked cool.
of the game is like a dungeon that you need like a specific lizard for to like get through and stuff like that.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, it is.
What else do we have on that list?
Interesting.
Anything? I think we've got some other stuff.
Monster Tale.
Yes.
Oh, Monster Tale. That
You
was
played it? No one ever played Monster Tale. When I asked them, they're like, "Oh, it looks like a girlie's game."
I played Monster Tale because I was a huge fan of Henry Hatsworth and the Puzzling Adventure.
All right.
That game is maybe my favorite on DS. One of my favorites on
And
DS.
it's got a funny story too.
Yeah, I mean,
the,
it was-
the kids in like the world.
Yeah, I didn't like the game as much as I hoped to, but it's very charming. I love the art style.
I call it baby's first Metroid.
There were certain things about the level design that annoyed me at the time, and I can't remember what it was, but yeah, I mean, I was actively hyped for that game because of the connection to Henry Hatsworth and Puzzling Adventure, which everyone should play on DS if they have not.
The thing that probably annoyed you was the, like you were saying with the Castlevania Curse of Darkness.
Yeah.
You got a monster system in that, the pet system, where you actually need to use them to unlock areas and like fight certain bosses.
You see, I don't like
on,
Pokemon.
on the bottom of the screen, you
So-
have like a sort of Tamagotchi thing where you have a pet, you can evolve it,
Right,
grow it,
right.
do whatever you want with it, and like. Sometimes during boss fights, like the boss's arms will reach down to the bottom of the screen, so you need to tap on it so that the monster will attack it. And then, like on the top screen, like the boss's like mouth will open, so now you can like start gashing at its weakness. But it's cool. It's not something I would see in like every Metroidvania style game. But for that specific game, it fit, and they did it really nice. And like you said, you know, it's like a baby's first Metroidvania. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, pet mechanics, you know, can be hit and miss with me, but something like Monster World 4, which is sort of straddles the line of whether you call it a Metroid-like game or not. You know, Wonder Boy and Monster World, definitely. Monster World 4, it's more sectioned off by individual levels, but the pet, I think, is maybe my favorite pet mechanic in all of gaming, because it kind of gains and loses abilities as it grows over the course of the game, so it sort of changes like what you
That's
can do.
how Curse of Darkness is too. I'm surprised you haven't played Curse of Darkness. It sounds like you
I mean,
really like it. Like you played it, but
I've played it live. I've made 2 good attempts to get into it, and I was just like, oh, I can't do it.
It's
So-
long empty hallways.
So to give you a tip on that game, use the strategy guide, because there is no way that you'll figure out on your own how to make the best creature to defeat Dracula, because you basically need it to defeat, like, I think Death and maybe Dracula, and if you have it, then you're good. But if you don't have it, like, no, you don't have a prayer.
That's like fighting Guts Man without any powers and Mega Man.
Yeah. What else do we have on that list? Anything?
Game Story is another good one. I think it's got the whole Metroid style thing, but it's also got like a roguelike aspect where each time you die, you lose all of your power-ups. I was talking about this with Peter over there, who's working on his own Metroidvania game right now. If you guys haven't played it, he's over by where the auction table was. Go check this game out. It's awesome. What's it called? Abaxis.
Yeah, that's the Gargoyle's Quest
Yeah, it's
style
Gargoyle's
game.
Quest.
It looks like Gargoyle's Quest.
Tell me more.
Yeah.
It's right. You know where they have the auction stuff set up before they did the auction? It's literally right on the other side of that table. You can check it out. He goes on Twitch too. You guys check him out over there, Imaginary Monsters. Literally sits there, works on the game. He'll probably take feedback from you too if you give him some good stuff. Help him make his game.
I just want to ask, are there any Metroidvanias that you think have added some new mechanic or pushed the genre forward in some way?
Good question.
How so?
Again, I hate to say it, compare it to Dark Souls, but that's very much what they were going for. So a lot of the world in the game isn't directly told to you. It's through like just like taking in the environment, looking at certain things during a boss fight or something like that, item description, things like that. So the world isn't really served to you on a silver platter. You gotta kind of piece it together, and that to me keeps me coming back because I'm always asking questions, right? And like that's who doesn't love a good mystery, right? You're on this island, like.
I'm gonna say Bloodstained. Because even though it's not out yet, it's gonna introduce a cooking mechanic. Which is pretty cool. And I'm not normally like, if I heard that in any other game, I'd be like, ugh. But
Symphony was food.
the Symphony had food.
Well, they're making food.
You could pick up food.
Yeah.
But like making food, like you can cook.
And get different buffs and stuff
If it's not wall meat, I'm not eating it.
You had a question?
Speaking of cooking,
Yeah.
Battle Chef Brigade.
Battle Chef Brigade?
Yeah.
That one I haven't heard of.
It's basically you play as like one of these two chefs, and then you have to go out into the environment to go and get ingredients for stuff, and then you have to go and compete against another like person within the universe to go and beat them in like a cooking
It's
competition.
kind of like a versus Overcooked.
It's like Bejeweled
Bejeweled with Overcooked elements. Don't play Overcooked with
Puzzle
me.
Quest.
When I play Overcooked, all I do is like if I'm playing with friends, oh, don't play that game with me. Because you know the level where there's like 2 trucks. This is getting way off topic, but there'll be like 2 trucks. So I'll start grabbing. They'll be like, I need lettuce. I'll be like, I got it. And I'll grab the tomatoes and I'll throw them off the truck onto the like dirt, like the highway. And then my friend will be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what? I'm throwing tomatoes on the ground. Don't worry about it. And then she's like, I need meat. And I'll be like, all right. So I'll get the meat and I'll just like throw the meat in like I intentionally make the game as difficult as possible for me. Yeah.
One game that I haven't played much of that might add something interesting to the whole formula is Mystic Bell, if anyone is familiar
I've heard
with
of that, yes.
It came out on PC several years ago, but it came out last October on PS4 and Xbox One. The reason I know that is because WayForward hired me to make the trailer.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So, but the interesting thing was the footage that they gave me really only conveyed like pure Metroidvania elements. You know, you could see the little map in the corner with the blue rooms and stuff. And I actually kind of made a joke of that in the trailer with some of the text. I'm like mini map with blue rooms. You know, I was like pointing out like all these obvious things that fans of Metroidvanias would like.
Yeah.
And the feedback was, this is great, but the game director is asking, can you show anything to show the adventure elements of the game? And I'm thinking, adventure elements? The footage you gave me doesn't have anything like that. So they gave me a Steam code
There you go.
to capture some footage of my own to show that stuff. So what you do is you collect items. Like early in the game, you get to this point where there's this flower, this like carnivorous flower that you can't get past. And the solution to it isn't necessarily powering up your character or fighting it or anything like that. You have to go around, explore, collect items, and figure out how to use those items. These aren't items that you can just shoot monsters with. You get like a bug sprayer type item, and you have to find the pesticide or insecticide or whatever you call it.
Like in Zelda 3, like Link to the Past, where you have to get the fishing net and then use the fishing net to capture the bug, and then you can put the bug in the
maybe something
jar,
like that. So you collect these items, and very much like a point and click adventure game.
It sounds like a point and click.
But it's a Metroidvania. You jump platform, fight enemies, but it's instead of pointing and clicking on stuff, you're moving this witch around this. Hogwarts-like school. And it's like, oh, okay, so I take this item, I combine these items, and then I go into my menu when I'm in front of this plant, and it's like this special animation. It's not like you take it out in your inventory and shoot it. You just click this, you say, I want to use this, and where I'm standing, and she just takes it out and goes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like casual animation. So, yeah, very much. So that's an interesting
That's
twist.
cool.
That's an interesting twist on the genre. It's called Mystic Bell. That's a year already to write down. I think it's MYSTIK
Yeah.
BELLE.
Yeah, 'cause I think you play as a girl named Belle.
Mystic
Right?
Beauty, yeah.
Yeah. So from the little bit I've played of it, it seems pretty cool. So.
Cool. All right, we got a couple minutes. So what else we got on the list?
I was just going to answer mine.
Oh, okay. Oh, go for it.
A couple of things that I've liked, going back to Ori and the Blind Forest, I really like how they allow you to make your own save points. So which is good and bad. It's good in the way that if there's a particularly difficult platforming segment, you can save right before it, so if you die, you go right back. It's bad if you're used to auto-saving or being prompted by actual save points and you realize you haven't made a save point in 20 minutes.
Is there a situation where you can get stuck and then
No, they won't let you save in a dangerous spot.
Okay.
So
Yeah, 'cause that would be the worst. if
In
you
my
have, like, one hit point.
save in that game, I beat that game, and then I got out of the final dungeon because I wanted to record footage of the game and just in the middle of the world, and then I forgot the controls and accidentally made a save point in this area that's between a bunch of spikes. I don't remember the controls well enough to get out of that area, so now I'm now I can't capture good footage of this game anymore because I'll have to play it again to remember the controls.
And then the other one is just SteamWorld Dig. I think it's really interesting how you basically make your own path and your own platforms through the world rather than having to.
Like Dig Dug, right? Kind of, sort
Yeah,
of.
sort of.
A little bit, yeah.
I've
Like
not
Fire
really-
and Ice, maybe. With the way you
Oh, I love Fire and Ice.
Stuff,
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the way you say it makes it sound interesting. I've kind of been tempted, but I've never tried it.
No, it's really good because you have a mine, so you start off at the beginning and you just keep going deeper and deeper into this mine, so you can find items in it and find things to fight. You have things like ladders, so if you can get tuned down and get you stuck, you can do a ladder,
Oh, that's
or you
cool.
can self-destruct and then go back to town.
Is the basic layout of the world kind of predefined, or is it randomized? I'm not big into
I
randomization.
think it's predefined.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like Splunky.
Splunky, yeah.
You ever play it?
Yeah. Cool. There's a few others. Getting back to the Castlevania aspect, La Mulana and La Mulana 2, which is really good. That has more aspects of Castlevania because you're literally fighting with a whip. So it's kind of like a mix of Indiana Jones and Pitfall, and it's non-linear.
Like tombs,
Yeah,
temples and stuff.
it takes a lot of inspiration
Very
from
Aztec,
yeah, it's like
inspired.
Aztec
Yeah.
oriented. So and it's
Mayans,
kind of like they took the story from Star Tropics and they were just like, let's just throw it in the Aztec area instead. So you get
Cola?
yeah. Well, and I don't know about the second game because I haven't played it, but the first game you play as this character who goes to find, I think, his missing uncle or something like that, and then he finds these people that are like, hey, here's a computer, and he gets an actual MSX computer. They changed it for the WiiWare release. I can't remember what they changed it to, but yeah, something like that. I don't know, but
Damn Nintendo.
yeah. So that one's really good. La Mulana, check that out. Unfortunately, you can't download it on WiiWare unless you still have points because it's on the Wii Virtual Console.
You can get it on Steam.
You can get it on Steam, but
I even
not
think
on console.
I
That's the
even-
only. It's only ever been released on console. And
I think there's even a free version on PC. Same thing with
there is.
Curse
Yeah,
Castilla. You
yeah.
can download that for
Yeah,
free also.
yeah.
They made DX versions of it, but I believe there's a free version of Mulana out there.
I think there's a couple other games on that list. That
Guacamelee.
Guacamelee. Yeah, great game.
Heavy
Yeah.
platforming.
Yeah, very
Platform.
action platform heavy oriented. So, what else we got?
I mean, I think Shadow Complex was almost maybe considered a bit of a revival of the genre, or
Agreed.
or specifically Metroid-like. I mean, it was shamelessly tied to Metroid. I mean, I think I heard that the developers, at the beginning of development, were all told go home and play Super Metroid.
Right. Yeah,
so
yeah.
I mean, I actually didn't play that until the limited run games.
Oh, really?
Came out on PS4, so I played it way after the day.
Oh,
But I
okay.
feel like that was also that was, from my perspective, maybe the first download-only game for consoles that people were making a really big deal
Yeah,
out of.
no, I agree with that.
And that kind of set off, all these other games. I mean, they kind of followed in a sense in its footsteps.
Yeah. So we have 5 minutes. So I guess we'll do the trivia. So I'm gonna grab a pen real quick, and we'll just basically take people's names down based on if they do. We're gonna do 10 questions if we have time. I don't know. Is there anybody after us? No. You are?
Yep.
Okay. Is there anybody after you?
Maybe.
Okay.
I think there's one more.
There is? Okay, all right, so we'll try to make it quick. So, question 1 is, what is Elizabeth Bartley based off of? Right there.
Elizabeth Bathory.
Yep, that's right. Follow-up, do you know, I'll give you a bonus point if you can answer it. Who is Elizabeth Bathory?
She was a countess that murdered young women and bathed in her blood.
Yep, true story. Based on real-life events, yeah. Yeah, that's the villain from Bloodlines.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
That's right. I was like, okay, who is the character we're talking about in the first place?
Yep. And what's your name?
She's in the opening scene.
Maria.
Maria. Boom, 1 point.
2 points.
Or 2 points, that's right, sorry, 2 points. We'll shortchange you. All right, you have one?
I was going to ask, what was the first Castlevania game with a female main character, but you
Whoops.
you spoiled it earlier.
Spoilers.
Who do you read?
Legends, I said legends. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was the first one with the
Playable.
one solo main character. I mean, I know there's...
When did Legends come out?
After the one I'm
Oh,
thinking about.
Yeah,
okay.
but she's not like a solo main character unless we're thinking of a different game.
All right, I think I know where Mike's going with this. All right, so that's the question. So what's the first female playable character in
Really?
Castlevania? Anybody?
That's actually the one game I haven't played.
Okay.
Is there a surprise at the end?
Castlevania 3. You got the
Sypha Belnades.
It's not Adventure?
Huh?
It's not Adventure?
Castlevania Adventure?
Yeah,
No.
for the Game Boy.
That's just
No.
Belmont, isn't it?
You just play as Belmont. It's Christopher Belmont.
Legends is the female.
Legends is the
character.
thing.
I
Yeah.
thought it was.
But you are actually dead on correct. I forgot about Sypha Belnades. The reason why I forgot about Sypha Belnades is because she was a he in the US version. So, yeah, which is weird because then they end up together in the end of the game, in the end scene.
Yeah.
So, whoops.
And now they have her in the Castlevania series.
Right. All right, so Rob gets a point.
I seriously thought it was a female in Adventure for the GB, the Game Boy, the first one.
All right.
But she has it's a long hair
Oh,
and stuff.
Yeah, no, you're wrong. It's okay.
I get it.
You got it. All right. All right. What is another good question? Do you have one off the top of your head?
Who are the 3 characters that you can play as in the bonus mode of Aria of Sorrow? Or no, excuse me, Dawn of Sorrow.
Dawn of Sorrow. Ooh, I don't even
There's
know
a
that.
special mode where you can play as 3 characters.
Yes. Do. This.
Julius, Maria, and Bricker?
Is that right? No?
Julius, Maria, and Alucard.
No.
No.
I'll give a hint. The female character is a descendant of Sifa.
Sophia.
That's not her name.
All right.
It's Yoko Bellanades.
Ah, yes.
Oh, right.
It's Julius Belmont, Yoko Bellanades, and Alucard.
I was colorblind.
What is the game that we never got that was planned to come out that there is a scene of in one of the Castlevania games? So there's a scene of it, but what is the game that was supposed to come out that never came out? Rob? No.
Dang.
Anybody? Huh? No, but that is a good question. All right. Okay, so there was a game that was supposed to come out called the 1999, it was like the Big War, and it was supposed to feature Julius Belmont. So out of I think Dawn of Sorrow, Aria of Sorrow. So
What was it going to be called?
it was, it wasn't gonna no, it didn't have a name, but they wanted to make a game based on that, because they talk about that in the games, but they never do anything. All right.
The answer then was here.
Yeah, I know.
Can we
Yep.
do one more? I got a good one.
Let's do one more.
Name the Castlevania game where the final boss is not Dracula or anyone else. The final boss is death.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to answer for her.
But you know it.
It's Lament of Innocence.
Laments of
True.
Innocence.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
What's
The
your name?
last boss is
I'm
death.
her boyfriend. We both want that cartridge.
All right, so we'll add to that. I have one final question. What was the game that was supposed to come out for the 32X?
Oh my god.
Don't know that.
That eventually became Rondo of Blood.
Wait, Rondo of Blood.
Yeah. It was supposed to be, Rondo of Blood was supposed to be released on the 32X. What was the name of it though?
Trailer, the Dreamcast.
It never had a trailer. It had some clip art that was leaked
Oh no, I think
out
they
to the
released
public.
it themselves.
No.
I think
And I'm-
Konami released the clip art themselves. It was like 2 sprites.
I'm gonna say Vampire's Kiss.
No. Vampire's Kiss is the port of the...
It is the European.
Right. Yeah. So, we have a winner, and it is Maria. So, Pam still has to sign it. We'll sign it afterwards. I want to thank everyone for coming to the panel. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, you can, if you have questions that you need to ask us as far as like where you can find us on YouTube and all that stuff, just ask us afterwards because we're running late on time. Thanks, guys. Yeah, that's true. That's one of the ones that we...
I wouldn't count that as stage based. Like once you do the stage, you move on to like
Bloodletting.
like backtracking and it really
Yeah.
it's a really good game. Like there's no denying.
Oh, yeah, I gotta bring that back
I
downstairs.
actually just bought it on the Switch because somebody had a copy here. I was like, oh, I need it.
So, yeah, I'll break down.
Oh yeah, I know. I switched. They have like
Yep, he's on there, and then,
like
yeah, you're on the back, and then Wrestling and Gaming, and, yeah, that's you. Corey did not sign it, no. But,
Go get him and sign it.
yeah.
It should be at the table. Tell them I don't